Boker Tov, good morning. Today is Friday, August 20th. Erev Shabbat Parshat Ki Teitzei. The Parshat deals not once, but more than once, with the question of multiple wives and marriage situations, which are so uncommon in our lives, but were not uncommon in the past. And specifically, in that discussion about taking a wife back and forth, we have what ultimately is the structure of the way in which a marriage is ended in Jewish law. The Torah says, "Ki kach ish isha ve'ala," when a man will take a wife and they have relations, ve'hayai lo timsachen be'einav, and it will be when she doesn't find favor in his eyes. He matzah ba ervat davar, he found some type of untoward matter, which is an issue of discussion in the Gemara, whether you need that, you need to have some issue that you can point to or not. V'chatav la sefer kritut, and he will write for her a bill of separation or divorce, v'natan biyada, and he will place it in her hand, v'shilacha mi beito, and he will send her forth from his house. That's the structure of Jewish divorce, and it's a complicated one that's very hard. In our era, when we understand marriage as being something which is a marriage of equals, the Torah nonetheless tells us that a divorce is initiated by the husband and created by the husband. There are those who explain, moderns who explain that we should understand the value of the Torah's message here, that in other cultures, where this was certainly the case, that the men controlled everything, that he could just cast her out. Here, there was a requirement that it be done in some formal way, and that was seen as a type of protection for the woman, and that's one way to, I guess, to read this. We, in our modern era, have been witness to a phenomenon which was not new, but somehow feels more pervasive. There were always situations in which a man might not give a bill of divorce to his wife. The classic case of the aguna was one in which a man was simply no longer there. He disappeared, presumed dead, and so that situation is one in which a woman couldn't have a bill of divorce, and you struggle. Halacha actually is quite makes every effort in that situation to try to find a way to release the woman from marriage bonds to a man who does not exist in their world anymore. But then there were other categories of individuals who, when a marriage was not good for any number of reasons, as are described both in Talmudic literature and then on all the codes as well that follow, and medievalists and early moderns, and struggling about situations in which a woman could demand a get, the halacha might obligate a get, all the time knowing that it was in the hands of the husband to do so, but there were mechanisms that were employed. What we have in the modern era is a terribly problematic reality, where there aren't any teeth, where the Beit Din has no capacity, even if the Beit Din concludes that a divorce is obligatory, which there are such possibilities in a number of cases. The Beit Din doesn't have much power to force a get, because we live in a different structure where there is a secular law, and the Beit Din doesn't have enforceability capacity. In Israel, things are somewhat different, significantly different, and there are ways in which significant pressure can be brought upon a man to give a get. You deny him any access to his finances. You can even imprison him in Israel for refusing to give a get to his wife when a wife is deemed to be, when a get is deemed to be required halachically for the circumstances that are there. But outside of the Israeli context, and even there are significant issues too. But outside of the Israeli context, things are much more challenging indeed when someone is recalcitrant. We'll pause for a moment. So in this country, things are problematic, to say the least. When someone is indeed recalcitrant, situations in which a person has been abusive, has mental illness and the like, it's really challenging. And the Batei Din, the Jewish courts, don't seem to act, even when we would think that they should be able to act. I've had the privilege over these past for a number of months to participate in a cohort of rabbis who were studying with the International Beit Din, the International Beit Din for Agunot, which has tried over the past number of years to come up with other strategies to help free a woman from a recalcitrant husband. And we spent time together studying Makorot, studying text to understand things better, the principles upon which they make some of their halachic decisions in which they free a woman from her marriage to her husband, when there has been a clear reality that the husband had mental illness when they married, when there was abuse from day one in their marriage, and she would never have ever entered a marriage such as that if she had known. And the presumption again is that the abusive capacity was already there. And it's been eye-opening, to say the least, to understand some of the, firstly, to meet with Agunot and hear their stories, to meet with members of the Beit Din and learn with them, as well as some who were faculty. Each time we came together to analyze and understand this, and to recognize that there might indeed be vehicles that exist. Some are reticent to use them because we are concerned that we undermine the structure of marriage. If we can find such ways in which we will mevatel a marriage, we will nullify a marriage, will void a marriage, and say it never existed. And does that open up a Pandora's box? As some of the more small c conservative Batei Din have taken that position, that we should just not do bitul kiddushin. We shouldn't be nullifying marriages, because where are you going to stop? The answer seems to be you stop when at the line between when halacha would seem to mandate and require a get, and yet you can't get one, and the situations where it wouldn't. This has been indeed, as I said, a fascinating opening for me, and I hope that at some point as we go into the future, I'll have a chance to share a little bit of some of the learning that I have done. I'm not an expert on the different components, but I certainly have come to more greatly appreciate the work of the International Beit Din, and recognize how important it is indeed in situations where there is no get coming, and the protests outside a person's house don't seem to be impacting, that there are other ways in which, God willing, a woman could be freed and have a life free from a man who is just seeking to cause her pain over and over again. The Torah, I'm sure, I know God did not want this. When God instituted the rule that the husband give a get to his wife, it wasn't so that he would be an abusive person. But once it becomes that way, where people are abusive in such a situation, we need to find ways desperately to protect these women, to give them a chance to live once more. Cain, Yehi Ratzon. May it be God's will.